from a spy chief giving this stark warning about a new kind of war to our own healthcare system right on the verge of collapse. This week was, well, it was all about pressure. So we're going to dig into these crises, see how they're all connected, and figure out what it all means. Let's get into it.
Right, so this is the line that got everyone talking. It's from the new head of MI6, Britain's Foreign Intelligence Service, in her very first public speech. I mean, what a thing to say, right? It just sets this incredibly serious tone, basically telling us that the old rulebook for how countries deal with each other, it's been thrown out. So what on earth does this space between peace and war actually look like?
Well, it has a name, the gray zone. And you got to forget what you might picture when you think of conflict, tanks, soldiers, front lines. That's not what this is. This is more of a constant, low-level fight, all about using sneaky tactics to destabilize and disrupt other countries without actually pushing that big red button for all-out war.
And this is exactly what the MI6 chief was getting at. She pointed the finger directly at Russia's playbook. We're talking about cyber attacks that could knock out essential services, those weird drone flights over airports, sabotage, and just this relentless flood of fake news and disinformation that's designed to make us not trust anything. She had a great phrase for it, the export of chaos, and it's all part of a strategy to keep everyone guessing.
And then this whole idea of global instability in these sort of hidden threats, well, it became terrifyingly real in Australia. This is where an abstract idea turned into an absolutely brutal act of terror. What should have been a joyful Hanukkah celebration at Sydney's iconic Bondi Beach just became a scene of absolute horror. The attack was clearly anti-Semitic, and one of the victims was a London-born rabbi. It's just this gut-wrenching reminder of how connected we all are, especially in moments of such awful tragedy.
And the details that are coming out about the attackers are just deeply worrying. It was a father and son, but here's the thing that's really crucial. The son had actually been investigated by Australian intelligence just a few years back over suspected ties to an ISIS cell. So, of course, this is raising some really serious questions about how this could have happened.
And the ripple effect was instant. I mean, as soon as the news broke out of Sydney, police here in the UK were already upping security and patrols around Jewish communities. It's such a clear signal that in the world we live in now, an attack on one side of the planet is immediately treated as a potential threat right here, at home.
Which, brings us right back to what the MI6 chief said. The front line is everywhere. And sure, she was talking about global threats, but you could just as easily use that exact same phrase to describe a massive crisis that's brewing right here in Britain.
Because for millions of people up and down the country, the most immediate front line, the most pressing battle, is the one to keep our National Health Service from completely collapsing under what really looks like a perfect storm.
And look, this isn't just something the media's cooked up. Just look at this data. A staggering 80% of the public says the NHS is a top national issue. That is huge. This crisis matters to pretty much everyone. So let's break down exactly why the system is under so much pressure right now.
Okay, so it's really a three-way pincer movement. First, you've got resident doctors staging a 5-day walkout. They rejected the government's latest offer by a huge margin. Second, that strike is happening at the exact same time as a really nasty and early wave of superflu, and hospitalizations are just soaring. And then, on top of all that, the whole system is just clogged. People can't be discharged, which means beds are blocked, so new patients can't get in.
The language coming from the top is, well, it's pretty terrifying. The health secretary used this powerful analogy of a Jenga piece, pulling out that one last block. The suggestion is that this isn't just another tough winter for the NHS. This could be the thing that brings the whole structure crashing down.
So, with all these pressures, global and domestic, everything eventually comes back to our political leaders. The big questions are, how are they planning to respond? And how are they answering for decisions they've made in the past?
Well, on the policy front, there was a huge announcement. The Conservative Party revealed plans to basically reverse some of the UK's biggest climate policies if they win the next election. They'd get rid of the 2030 ban on new petrol and diesel cars and totally scrap the mandate forcing car makers to sell more EVs. I mean, this is a massive U-turn.
And the backlash, as you can imagine, was instant. Critics and the car industry are saying this creates total chaos for manufacturers who've already invested billions of pounds based on that 2030 deadline. The big fear, as you can see here, is that it'll scare off investors, put jobs at risk, and basically leave the UK in the dust in the global race for green tech.
Now, shifting from future policy to past accountability, the Prime Minister was in the hot seat at the COVID-19 inquiry. And when they asked him about his WhatsApp messages from that critical time, well, they're glowing. He said he changed his phone multiple times and the messages just had not come across.
He also spent time defending his Eat Out to Help Out scheme. He argued that his main motivation was economic, that it was a desperate move to try and save millions of jobs in the pubs, cafes, and restaurants that were on the brink of collapse.
You know, even with all of this serious, high-stakes news going on, life, of course, continues. And in the world of culture this week, we saw two stories that were just polar opposites, moments of real darkness and pure, unadulterated celebration.
First, The Shadow. Just absolutely shocking and tragic news from Hollywood. The legendary director Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle, were found dead. And the story took an even more heartbreaking turn when it was reported their own son had been arrested. Just a devastating story for a family that brought so much entertainment to so many people. And then, The Light. In the sharpest possible contrast, pop superstar Kylie Minogue ended what's been an incredible year for her on the biggest possible high. She got her 11th #1 album in the UK. She called the whole thing astonishing and emotional, and it was just a wonderful moment of pure joy to round out the year.
So that's where we'll leave it. From these gray zone conflicts and a health service at breaking point, all the way to these very human stories of tragedy and triumph, it really all boils down to one central question, doesn't it? In a world where it feels like we're constantly under pressure from all sides, how do we actually build a stronger, safer, and more resilient future?